And, you know, how, when, and why did you open that club?
Well, I was managing a rock band called Swamp Thing. They were a Wisconsin band, 4 guys. I really wanted to be in the band myself, but I couldn't play guitar. I mean, I really sucked in high school, and ended up managing them, and then essentially, thanks to the new music seminar in that book, decided, all right, I'm gonna make a ton of money with these guys and put out a record. And started the record label for the band called Flaming Pie Records. And of course, you can't get paid at the time from record stores for putting out one record, so you needed to put out multiple records, so you had a second one to show to the record stores so you could get paid on the first one. So then the idea was, well, why not have a Wisconsin-esque label? So then these are all bands everyone knows really well, like Phil Gnarly and the Tough Guys, Honor Among Thieves, and so I started putting out other Wisconsin acts in order to get paid on this Swamp Thing. And it was a failure, and I was on 10th Street, and I was gonna go back to Wisconsin, you know, trying to, I guess I did become a record mogul in New York, and saw a for rent sign on a small office on Houston Street, and thought, well, if there's a way to put a stage in there, I'll move into the back and start selling coffee and tea. Maybe I could survive in Manhattan somehow. And I was gonna call it the Fire, well actually the first name for it was gonna be Espressoism. One, because I was really high in a coffee shop in East Village coming up with names, but Espressoism was exactly the epitome of what I wanted. It was a coffee shop that we were gonna have artwork and music and performance, and it would be the greatest art coffee shop ever. Then that went away, and then because there was a fire escape right in front of the big window out overlooking Houston Street, then the name became the Fire Escape, which became actually the corporate name. And I started talking to some friends and going, you know, I'm going to open this great new club in New York called the Fire Escape. And they're like, that's a really stupid fucking name for a club that doesn't connote anything except for your escaping the fire.
Yeah.
So very quickly, the band Swamp Thing's second record was going to be called Mr. Bloodstein's Knitting Factory. And
Mr. Bloodstain's Knitting Factory?
Bloodstein.
Oh, Bloodstein.
Bloodstein. And it was basically a sweater manufacturer in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where a bunch of the guys worked.
So that was a real place. That wasn't like some thing that they pulled out of, you know.
Bloodstein Sweaters, but they called it the Knitting Factory.
Okay.
And
it wasn't
so
like
I asked to borrow the name, and quickly changed the name the second week we were open, which was February of '87. And the idea was poetry on Wednesdays, jazz on Thursdays, anything goes Fridays and Saturdays, rock and roll. And you know, very quickly got very lucky because in New York the scene was open to both looking for an honest place to play that respected the music, and I had a simple deal with artists, which was 75-25 split. And you know, the band Swamp Thing had played at CB's and the Dive and all over, and there was always weird deals. And
yeah, that was there. I think that might have been the beginning of the pay-to-play phenomenon, where if you wanted your band to play at, you know, a room like CBGB's, and if you wanted to have that in Premature, you had to buy your own tickets so that the club would know that they were going to make money. So you had to essentially pay them to let you play in their club.
Right, the 555 Club in New York, and you know, 8BC.
Oh yeah.
And so, anyways, we'd gotten screwed so many times that, you know, I learned all these deals that 75-25 was fair, and all of a sudden, acts from Sonic Youth to Joan Osborne to, you know, the first Indigo Girls shows, I mean, those things all started coming to us because we were just either naive or just honest, but 75-25 worked, and all of a sudden, you know, great acts started to come our way. And then, you know, not having any real taste myself, you know, I was interested in both the jazz scene and the rock scene, and I couldn't choose. So, you know, we got to really become a home for avant-garde jazz and really alternative rock, and it worked out because, you know, then Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth is looking at, you know, some really great jazz stuff, and it was influencing. It was just a very robust time of music.
I think that's, whether it was intentional or not, I think that, I know that that probably had a lot to do with your success, because I remember that the club scene back then, it was very much like either it was a rock club, or it was a blues club, or it was a punk club, or it was a jazz club, and there weren't any other rooms where you had that sort of mixture and that ferment as you developed at the Knitting Factory. So I'm sure that that had something to do with how successful it became.
It was part, you know, and success is as you know, having read the book now, it's, you know, look, I feel great that the Knitting Factory is still alive and in the neighborhood here. But success is you know, how are you judging success? You know, financially, it was far from a success. It was a real struggle for the whole time, you know, we were there. In Manhattan, it's still a struggle, and all clubs are a struggle. I, you know, lived inside the venue, you know, had a futon under my desk for the first year and a half. Went to Pineapple Fitness, which was $19.99 a month on the corner of Houston and Broadway. And it was a cheap place, but it's where I went to brush my teeth and shower and occasionally take a steam. I never worked out. They thought it was weird, but it was $19.99 a month to live in Manhattan. It worked out really well. But that was the dues, you know, that needed to be paid in the beginning of the knit, for sure, to have it survive.
So, I want to ask you about the title of your book, Indulge Your Senses, and what exactly does that mean, and how do you feel like that phrase or that idea can help people in just the music business in general?
Well, I think we're really lucky to be on the live side of the music business. You know, the opportunity to see, you know, someone like you up close is a precious opportunity for people. And I've always recognized the role of the venue, even when it, you know, might not have the greatest bathrooms in the world like we did on Houston Street between 87 and 94. But creating vibe is really important to be able to see someone special like you. And to be able to create a room today where we're really thinking about the whole sensory experience. And not just, you know, this hotel has really great wood staircase coming up with texture, and there's some real beauty here. But how do you consider the smells and all of the sights that one takes in when they're entering a space? That became really important when it came time for City Winery, and not having columns in the way, and having a great sound system, and all of these components that add up to making a 2-hour experience as special as possible. So these days, I mean, the sort of sub-thesis in the book is we're in our screens all day long. You know, technology has fully invaded our lives, which on one hand is a really great tool, but to think of a venue 2-hour experience as a really important antidote where you might actually feel compelled to not have it up the whole time filming you, but actually be so into the setting and you that it's a magical experience, and you keep your phone in your pocket. A couple Instagram shots, and you know it's on vibrate in case your kids are, you know, smoking pot and the neighbors are calling or something like that. So you have that, you know, we're not going to be, we didn't feel, we've had management conversations where should we, you know, confiscate phones? You know, some places do that. Prince made us do that. Like, but we didn't want to be Gestapo-like. That there's still something about, you know, even if it's in the pocket, knowing that it's there, that we felt was right. And our job as a venue is to create such a compelling 2-hour window of time that hopefully the incentive is to keep it in the pocket or on the table, and that's our job. So that, you know, when you look at what's going on in the world, with retail, there's some application of that concept that could, you know, explain why SoulCycle and meditation suites at airports are now becoming more and more valuable. I don't think it's a surprise that Amazon bought Whole Foods. You know, they might be evil in other ways, but they needed this very sensory retail outlet. Eventually, we'll see what they're going to do. I believe strongly that the iPhone wouldn't have, even though it's such an elegant, great piece of technology, it wouldn't have done as well if it wasn't for the Apple Store, for people to actually see it and feel it before they, you know, got converted. So the physical and the atoms and the sensory is very important.
So I could tell that you've come to that realization, maybe you didn't know that in the very beginning when you were in the middle of dealing with stuff at the Knitting Factory, because I know the Knitting Factory had a big component of wanting to live simulcast things and wanting to have people in Shanghai be able to watch a band on the Knitting Factory stage in New York and create sort of a virtual community around the Knitting Factory. But you talk in the book about being seduced by technology during the dot-com boom. And I want you to tell about when you realized that you had gone overboard with that and when it was too much.
Well, I definitely overdosed on technology, and certainly during the dot-com build-up, and when we had moved the club to Leonard Street, and we were really deep in the early webcasting. We were the first club to, on a nightly basis, be webcasting. But the OD came when I was not calling it music anymore. It was content. You weren't an artist. You were a content provider. And that's a bad way to look at an artist, and certainly a bad way to look at what we do. And went overboard.
And I mean, why is it? I think it's important to talk about why that's a bad thing, and you know, why you believe that you can't reduce things to content.
I just think it's disrespectful to the art form. You know, you're Joan Osborne, not widget 2372, you know, and it got to that point where it's just, I wasn't enjoying the music, I was just, how many people online can I get, you know, and what it was about just the expansion digitally versus living in the moment, and kind of the disrespect on some level of the art form, and enjoying life and the more meaningful components that there are versus just expansion for expansion's sake. So yeah, the build up during the dot-com, 96, 97, 98, 99, kind of leading to 9/11 was irrational exuberance. It was super cool to see, you know, notes come in from Singapore and Europe, but what was it really doing? And so, for me, leaving and getting out of the Knitting Factory and taking a few years to really struggle, and to be able to wander in the desert and go, all right, do I want to be in the recorded music business, and do I, you know, I started a Hebrew school, so maybe, you know, I'll go back and become a rabbi. Luckily, I drank a lot of fucking wine, and I made a barrel of wine in California, and that was the Kool-Aid moment where I was like, I want to do something that brings agriculture and the environment and nature and those elements into the business. But I got scared to just do a regular pure winery. I tried very hard to convince my 3 kids and wife to move to Oregon, into the Willamette Valley, because that's where I thought this is the greatest Pinot Noir region in the country, and this is what I want to do. I'm done. And actually, my two young, at the time 8-year-old twin boys who grew up in a jazz household in unison when I said family meeting. Daddy we were on a trip to the Willamette Valley so I could wine taste, and they're in the back seat, and I woke everybody up and said, family meeting, Daddy wants to buy some property here and get into the wine business. My 8-year-olds, twins in unison, were like, no fucking way, Dad. And then my wife, who usually scolds me for everything, including the kids' use of curse, said, very good intonation, children. We're no fucking way we're moving here. And so, but that sort of forced the thinking of how to do a wine project in Manhattan, how to create an urban winery. So that kind of forced the mashup. And then, you know, there's an old saying in wine, it's easy to make good wine, it's hard to sell it. And so I got very nervous as I was doing the due diligence on wanting to be a true urban winery, that better, you know, stick to my knitting and figure out a way to, you know, sell wine around a live music venue. And luckily in New York, the bottom line had gone away, and there was a real opportunity for a 300 sit-down space, and you know, it was expensive, risky on some level proposition, but I saw that opportunity and combined it with the winery, you know, on Varick Street in 08, and we opened. And you were the first show.
I was the first. That was the first show, and
First show and the last show
at the New York City Winery on Varick Street.
And about 50 shows or so in between.
At least, yeah. Well, so, but I want to get back to this issue of technology, because I know that that's a big part of what this conference is about. So, like everybody else, you have to use some technology to run your business. You have to have a website, you have to have this, and for example, you have developed this amazing proprietary ticketing system where the audience gets to pick their own seats and gets to list their preferences of how they want to be served and what kind of wine they like, and so people can feel like it's a bit more of a custom experience. But where is the line between a smart use of technology and letting technology get in the way, as it did in the past, and how did you find that line?
Well, I think we're still discovering that line. You know, while we want to have the phone stay in the pocket during a show, we're certainly not Luddites. You know, the whole experience starts when you make the decision that you want to come see a show or come to dinner. And so that's going to end up being some sort of technological connection, right? So you're either going to Open Table to make a restaurant reservation, or you're going to buy a ticket. So how to make that moment as seamless as possible. So all the ticketing, there's probably some ticketing companies here, but we've avoided every major company, even with the giant advances right now. Well, last year we did 700,000 tickets between all of our city wineries, so we're actually becoming a reasonable nab for a ticket company. Yeah. But we're not going there because they don't offer the same custom service that we really want. We want, you know, our patrons to be able to pick their seat. So now the seat, 11 years ago, that wasn't, that was pretty unique, but now everyone's doing it. Yeah. But we have a membership program that allows for $99 a year, and we have about 15,000 members now around the country, where you get 48-hour advance notice on shows before the population, but you also have picked your 5 favorite seats in the room that you go to the most often. And so when we announce a show and on mobile, it's hard to pick a seat because, you know, your fingers are too, you know, it's hard. It's a yes or no question. Would you like to go see the new Joan Osborne show, and would you like your favorite seat, yes or no? It's just a convenient, smooth, customer service focused way to sell tickets. And Ticketmaster and TicketWeb and Eventbrite, nobody can do that. I don't know why. We're not a technology company, and I don't want to be.
Right.
And we're spending way too much money on developers on one hand, but that is the level of customer attention we want to have. And if it happens to be tied into our point of sale, system, so that we know that your fans like more Pinot Noir than they do Syrah, and we can then go in and offer a better, experience. That's the only way we can achieve scale, by knowing our customer. So that data, the CRM is really, really important to us. But sometimes data scares people.
Yeah.
That you know too much about them, so we've been cautious. So that's that line you're talking about, like how far we want to go, where we're sending notes at home because we saw somebody browsing for something, and we then go into their browser and say, hey, by the way, it's scary. So we use technology a lot as a tool, but we want the experience to be as technologically free as possible.
And I would have to say that when I've done shows all over the country in all different kinds of venues, it's almost impossible now to go on stage and be in a venue and have people not put their phone up and film you as you're performing. And you can talk to them from the stage and say, I think you really ought to put that away. I think you're going to enjoy the night more. But it seems to be what the new normal is, and that doesn't happen in city winery venues and as much. I mean, it will happen every once in a while, but that's one of the only places anymore. I was even at a Broadway show, and I was seeing Hamilton, and there were people who were pulling out their phones, and if you're in a darkened theater and you pull out your telephone and you start going online, the light from your phone lights up your face. So if somebody's on stage, they're going to see the one guy in row 4, seat 15, who's got his phone out, and it's going to completely, blow. Lin-Manuel Miranda used to post about it all the time, like, I see you, dude, and get off your phone. And it's incredibly distracting, but that's one thing that doesn't seem to happen so much at City Winery. So I feel like this mixture that you've got going on, where you can create a space where people don't want to be checking their phones all the time, it seems to be successful.
Well, it also helps because we're trying to keep their wine glass full, so at least one hand is on a glass of wine.
There you go, that's what it is, yeah. The fork, the spoon, the wine glass, yeah, it's true.
If we keep their mouths full and busy, then maybe they're on their phone.
I think that's probably true. Apropos to that, you and I have both seen a lot of change in the live music scene in the past 30 years. That's the thing that I was just talking about is one way that has changed. How would what do you have to say about the way things have changed?
Well, there's just a couple different ways to approach that question. One is the real estate market and just the ability to have spaces to perform, which are more and more important to the ecosystem of the music community, because that's one of the good ways to earn a living.
Yeah.
But there are less and less rooms because real estate prices in big cities has gone up. And I've had this interesting experience now of where we're going to keep opening. In the last 2 weeks, I've been to Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, as we were talking about, and Detroit, and Scottsdale. And look, I'm on a plane a lot, looking to how and where we're going to go to, and real estate really, Toronto.
Yeah.
We were just talking about. We want to be in Toronto desperately. It's a great market, but air rights in Toronto are worse than Manhattan.
Wow.
And so the ability to find a room, and the amount of space we need to open, I'm looking at $1.5 to $2 million a year in rent. Even for Live Nation and AEG, that's not something to just go, oh, fuck it, let's open. It's hard. And so real estate pricing and the inflation around, the development world has made it very difficult in the important urban markets that we are. At the same time, you have retail that's been struggling like crazy, so the big box stores, bookstores, record stores, and clothing stores, because of Amazon, you're getting some space that's opening up. But a lot of times in the cities themselves, it's been a slower development change. And then in markets like Cincinnati, it's in these suburbs that you had these big boxes. So every day we're getting a call from a suburban town, saying, please open, a city winery in suburban Kansas City. And it's, that's going to be more challenging. We kind of want to be in town. So real estate's affected big time. And even Brooklyn now has gotten really pricey, obviously. And so putting on live shows is harder, but more important than ever. Obviously, technology had a huge change to our industry. During the whole .com build-up, you used to get tour support. Now
now it's
now you put out records and make music to play live because that's where the money is.
Yeah, you can't make a living anymore just selling your music either online or recorded music and stuff. That has gone by the wayside for all but a very, very tiny fraction of people, and it's really the people who can go out and do live tours that can make a living. That being said, the competition for the spaces, as you were saying, it gets harder and harder, and people are out more. So the artists are out more, the bands are out touring more. So a fan is spoiled for choice, but how many nights can you go out every week or every month to see some great concert? So the touring dollar, the share of the touring dollar that goes to each individual artist or band gets smaller and smaller. So we feel that we're being squeezed in that way for sure. It's a different time.
To me, it's a very fascinating time, especially in the arc of what's going on the underside of the creation of spaces, but then what's going on musically. The fact that there are all kinds of artists that have reached a point in their career where they're not selling out the bigger rooms, and we become this perfect space. I can't help but think about like Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Those guys. I mean, all three of them love playing. I wish I could say Ann Young, but he's still doing great.
Yeah.
But but I love Crosby, Stills, and Nash, both as individually, but obviously their music. But their audience would prefer to see them for 3 nights, at City Winery, and we can pay, basically most of our box office to them to get them in the room, and then our focus is on the food and beverage. And so that creation of a unique lemonade stand is working for that particular group of artists, which wasn't there 30 years ago, really, and it's become more important today because some of these cats, they need that income stream, and that's where their audience wants to see them.
All right, let's see. You mentioned these guys a little bit earlier, but what is your relationship with the two sort of 900-pound gorillas in the business, Live Nation and AEG? Do you get worried that they will get aggressive towards you if you keep growing beyond, the platform that you have right now?
I'm not worried about them. They're good companies. They put on the most shows in the country, and they have a bunch of artists locked up. They can't serve food and wine